Hello, Reset with Raven family. Homelessness, a PhD, unemployment, multiple surgeries, and an unrelenting fight with Clarence. Today's guest, Dr. Neosho C. Ponder, known affectionately as Dr. P, has been through it and is here today to walk us through her journey of hardship, loss, resilience, and how she found humor in these obstacles and chose not to give up. Welcome, Neosho.
Thank you, Raven. Thank you for having me.
Neosho, I'm sure everyone is wondering, who is Clarence?
Child, Clarence is officially Black history, first of all. So Clarence was my tumor. So on April 8th, 2016 at 5:37 p.m., I discovered a lump in my left breast. And because I didn't tell anyone, I had to touch him every day for 2 weeks. And during that time, I would talk to it and be like, why are you here? You're ruining my life and all those things. And Clarence came to mind. It's just the kid at school that you wanted to go away that would annoy you, and that's what my tumor was.
Wow. So take us back to that date. He said Friday, April the 8th, 2016 at 5:37 p.m. So your life changed forever, right?
Yeah.
Take us back to what was going through your mind, your thoughts, your emotions when you felt this.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, my heart stopped. Of course, it's and that's what made me look at the clock. Because when I felt it, my heart dropped, and I looked at the clock, and I knew my life would never be the same. And in knowing that my life would never be the same, I had to hold it together so that I wouldn't make rash and emotional, decisions and movements in that space. And I was on the phone at the time, and I go into more details in my book about it, but I was on the phone with my sorority sister, and I had to ask her, girl, be quiet. I think I felt a lump in my boob. It was just like that. Yeah. And she was like, huh? Are you sure? I said, I didn't already touched the other side. This is not supposed to be here. And I got off the phone with her, and I heard God say, this is why you can't find a job. I have a bigger job for you. So, what wasn't said in the intro is that this is 1 year after I earned my PhD. So after being in grad school for pretty much all of my 30s, I did a master's and PhD back to back, and I was finally done with school. And being finally done with school meant, I can, get out there and do all the things you want to do in life, right? Yeah, right. God had other plans, and I was still looking for a job a year later, and my mental health was already waning. So I was already struggling, with purpose and am I good enough and all those things, right? So my headspace was okay. This low key makes sense because ain't nothing going right in my life right now. But at the same time, I'm like, really, God, really, you know. So later in the evening, I said out loud to God I wasn't ready, and He told me that I just have to fight. So that was how a lot of our conversations, went. Was very candid, sometimes arguments. This is all my conversations with God over a period of about 3 years. And yeah, so I was clear in knowing what I felt, and I was up kind of at peace with knowing what it is. What was jarring to me was how do I tell people? How do I tell my family? Things like that. I was just like, but I have to get it confirmed. I have to get as many answers as I can before I start doing that.
Wow. You titled your book that's recently released, God's Got Jokes. And you just also mentioned how you would be fighting with God. You were having conversations with God, and you're like, I can't believe this is life right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to many people that are thinking there is nothing funny about a cancer diagnosis or breast cancer, and you're in your 30s? So talk to us about how did you arrive at God's Got Jokes?
Well, anyone who thinks there's nothing funny about cancer has never been diagnosed. First of all. And there were ebbs and flows of the humor. And I go into that in the book about it's dark humor. Let's be clear. There was no laugh out loud, slap your leg. It's like that Dave Chappelle kind of humor. Like you laughing, but you like, should I be laughing at this? Yeah, that's the kind of humor it was. And I'm not gonna lie. One thing after, I was like, what's next? What is next? Like it was at that point, like it's like you're ready to laugh again because it's like something's coming next. I know there has to be, it's kind of like I described like in at one point in the book where it's like I could tell this is a premise of a joke. And if you are, I have friends who are comedians, and it's a science to writing jokes, and I just started to break down different parts of my journey. Like, okay, this was the premise, right? But this is the punchline, and did it hit? And literally that was my thought process at times because it was almost like I don't know how to play chess, so I can't say this was a chess match. This was literally like it's like as if we were going back and forth with the Joneses, like playing the dozens, me and God. It was like, ah. But my and thinking about me laughing, it was like that laughter helped heal, was very healing. And when you are going through something and you don't know if you're gonna make it out, like that's just the truth. You don't know what he has in store. You're like, okay, this is the time for me to be obedient. And my faith is really strong. But even for those who don't believe in necessarily God, right? You have to believe in the universe. You have to trust the universe. You have to trust Mother Nature. You have to trust your instincts as a woman, because there were times when I didn't make the best decisions as a woman in my journey. And I probably could have, I was too hasty for some decisions, and I probably could have taken a beat. And those were the little areas that I'm like, oh, I wish I could have done that differently. And that could have alleviated some of the hardship. But overall, there's a reason for everything, right? And that's pretty much how I got here today.
So you found like the deeper meaning and the reason. As this is going on, are you thinking like, okay, I'm gonna document this story, this fight? Like I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about how oftentimes we don't realize when we're going through something,
Mm-hmm.
it's bigger than us. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
through this. So when another person experiences their own setback, pain, devastation, loss, complete, I can't believe this is happening,
Mm-hmm.
I can be there. So when you're going through this process, it sounds like you anchored in your trust in God. So did you have like a resolve? Talk to us about like, was there a resolve? Like, because you talked about fighting. Did you just say like, I'm going to live? I know that there's something bigger. What did you have a mantra that you said to yourself every day? What is keeping you anchored in like, I will beat this, I will fight no matter what?
Okay, so something that the viewers should know about me is I name everything. Okay, I name everything, and you know it's things that I have to put kind of like a story with or something. I don't know if it's just my Pisces dreamer type personality, but in naming Clarence, I knew that was my target. That's who I was fighting. So I argued with Clarence a lot. Like I was straight up like, you ain't shit. Coming for your ass. Like that's how I would talk to my tumor in the shower while like crying the ugly cry, right? And what I realized is that I didn't have a sense of fear, and I didn't have a sense of worry. So when I started just telling myself that, fear and worry doesn't go with faith and prayer, right? So that was really my mantra through this whole journey was, if I'm going to have faith in God, if I'm going to pray like I do, then I can't be afraid and I can't be worrying all the time. The flesh is weak. Don't get it twisted, okay? I had my moments, but I didn't have 3 years of why me, Lord. I didn't do that. It was more so like, what's next? Okay, order my steps, God. if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, if this is the surgery I need to have, or if this is the medication I need to take, or if this is the surgeon I have to go with, Lord, send me a sign. Like, I was asking things, like very specific questions, and I had very specific prayers. So much so that I laughed at some of the what came out of that, the specificity of those prayers, because it's like, wait a minute, this ain't what I prayed for. But it doesn't matter what you pray for. A lot of times he sends you what you need. And I found that out as well. So definitely, faith and prayer doesn't go with fear and worry. That was a huge mantra, and I do talk about that in the book.
That is phenomenal. He sends you what you need. Oh, that's good. That's good. I want to circle back to the purpose and am I good enough question that you mentioned, because I don't want to miss this too, as you've been through so much. And what is so admirable about you is that you're also very well accomplished. I don't want anybody to sleep on that as well. Very well accomplished. And you still had this, am I good enough, when you, while you were in a search for a job, for the next role, for the next opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk to us more about what that experience was like, what that year, like post graduation up into leading to this diagnosis, because I really also want to make sure that we focus on not only just physical health, but mental health and stress and worry. And also, too, recognizing you are very well accomplished and you still experience those feelings, those thoughts. Talk to us more about what that was like leading up to your diagnosis.
Well, thank you, Raven, for that compliment. When you spend like your like more than half of your adult life, working towards a goal, because at that point I was 36 when I was diagnosed. So I spent 7 years in graduate school. I tell people all the time I didn't become an adult till I was 25, right? So that's more than half of my adult life. Okay. And you see everyone else's lives moving forward. And it's not necessarily a comparison, right? But it's kind of like you think this is where I'm supposed to be, naturally, and I was I had I have still hugely successful friends, and so I've accomplished a lot, mainly because I was 36. Like, if you ain't accomplished a lot by 36, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? Education, career, children, marriage, divorce, whatever, that's a lot. And I really struggled with understanding my worth and walking into certain situations with the understanding that I am more than enough. Like, I bring more than enough to the table, because I hadn't worked like in the actual professional space in over 7 years. So that was it's a whole new world. And so, being an educator, I was teaching the entire time. But being an educator and being and not wanting to teach full time and wanting to go back into nonprofit, and thinking you're leveraging these relationships and these contacts, and there are things that opportunities afforded to me that I didn't take advantage of during that year, and I didn't realize it until, of course, the opportunity had passed. And I didn't understand, like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I, and then when I discovered Clarence, I was like, okay. Because I know the stories of women, who are sick and have huge jobs and big responsibilities, and the toll that takes. So me not working during my entire cancer journey probably was the best thing for me. Okay, there are some people that can do it. I just don't know if I could have, especially with all the hardships that came with it, that had nothing to do with employment. So yeah.
That is huge. And we didn't talk also about, so there's that element of like, I was having a conversation with my mentor about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about time. And sometimes when you get a devastation or a diagnosis or just a disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
the time you have starts to become front and center. And also, too, the time that maybe you didn't use the way
Ooh.
that you could have, or you could have maximized it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably thinking, well, why did I, like you just said, why did I do this? Or why did I let that hold me back or set me back?
Yeah.
And I guess call it fortunate or unfortunately, then something comes to shake your world, right?
Yeah.
And it puts things into, I guess you would say, perspective, as you're talking
Yeah.
about, like, especially I think as like Black women, when you're talking about education, your career, your children,
Read the book. It's all
marriage.
in there.
Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
want it all, right? You
Yeah.
wanting it all. You know, what is the American dream? Your white picket fence, and wondering at any point in time, did you self-sacrifice for certain things or certain accomplishments or certain goals? And it really makes you. I saw a quote the other day. Start to think about putting life back into living. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me put some life back into this.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't also, I want to touch on this as well, because I just want the listeners and for anyone who's watching to also be aware that there was homelessness. There a place that you've been living for years. All of a sudden, that was no longer an option. I just really want to add some context to everything that you're experiencing at the time. Talk to us about where that showed up in your journey
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected you, because I don't want to steal your thunder, but that the where you were saying that was like a friendship as well. So talk to us about
Yeah.
friendship or relationship
Yeah.
that it was. Maybe that's not the right term. I'll let
No,
you
no, it
tell
is.
it.
Oh no. Oh no, no,
It
no.
was okay.
Um, okay, so two things. One, I'm considering, and I need to really pray long and hard. Okay, so it won't be any time in the immediate future, but I'm considering writing another book that has to do with that whole time element and being, this, I have a chapter in my book called "It's Lonely at the Top" that I kind of touch on that a little bit in terms of time. And keep in mind, this is 6 years ago. So, I was in my mid 30s and now I'm in my early 40s. And, definitely in a much better place, health wise and, my living situation. But still, time is ticking. I want to be a mother, I want to be a wife and things like that. Time is ticking. And, but these things don't happen in our time. It happens in his time. And we just have to maintain the faith, and he'll give us a sense of peace over what we don't accomplish. So I just want to push that out there, that if, I'm considering doing a whole nother book that still branches off of this one. So I lived in a basement apartment in Washington, D.C. for 9 years. I moved there in 2007. And I would say a week and a couple of days before my double mastectomy, my landlord, who was also my friend, more like family, literally, I had to say, was at my biopsy, like we were family. Let me just be very clear. Said, let's talk about your exit plan, while I'm sharing that I'm thinking of doing the double mastectomy before chemo. So these were the conversations that we were having, because I lived below, their home. And it was and out of nowhere, I mean, literally out of nowhere. It was not like, it had ever been discussed before. Just the Christmas before, which was the first Christmas that I did not spend with my family in my whole life, because I was so embarrassed by not having a job. So that Christmas in 2015, at the end of 2015, I stayed in DC and spent it with my landlord, who was, like I said, we were like family. And I remember it being said out of their mouths, as long as I have a place, you have a place, because someone had made the joke about, that it was like everything that was for them was for us, because it's in the whole house, excited, just being silly, really. But yeah, so it was that kind of relationship. And I mean, one of my beta readers said, how do you remember all of these conversations like you do? Because in the book, I go through whole conversations, and I remember them because when you're sick and you're laying in a bed and you can't move, or you are too tired to move, all you can do is think about how you got here. and how you're in this stranger's house, and or how you're in a friend's house and they're sleeping on their couch because they're giving their room to you, and you're just thinking about all these conversations, like, how did I get here? What did I do to get me here? And that conversation, let's think about your exit plan. What do you mean exit plan? Because again, I was told after I graduated that I didn't have to pay rent until I found a job. That was one. And two, you'll have a home as long as I have a home. So it was just jarring. It was jarring. And I had a little bit of PTSD, and I had therapy behind it, because I used to have nightmares about that person. And I've since forgiven them and prayed about it and just let it go. But I'm okay with, not ever seeing that. I used to be afraid to drive past the neighborhood because it scared me. So to drive past the neighborhood I lived in, you know, would bother me. That's just how traumatic that experience was. So thinking about the exit plan, I asked, could I move out after chemo? Just let me get through chemo, and I was about to have the mastectomy. I was going to go through egg freezing and then start chemo. That was the plan, right? Chemo would start in August and end in December. I'll move in January. That was the start of radiation. So I was like, okay, that was okay. Then this was June. Okay. The end of June. I had my double mastectomy on July 5th. My first day of chemo was August 23rd. I get a phone call, thinking the phone call was, how are you feeling? It's your first day of chemo. No, phone call was, I need you out in by October 1st. If this is August 23rd, that means that I have to pack up 9 years of my life in 5 weeks after having a double mastectomy while going through chemo. Yeah, no type of empathy, in my opinion. How do I do this? I prayed about it, of course, and I was just like, it was one of those like, okay, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I whatever you say, you know, and it had just it at that point the relationship shifted anyway, naturally. I was afraid to walk out the door to go to chemo because I didn't want to run into them. It was never a actual confrontation, but it was, being offended because their child couldn't come downstairs to visit me because I don't have an immune system. Like, you work in healthcare. Why are you offended when I don't have an immune system? So how about think of another way? Like, stand out, at the end of the driveway or something, and I can wave. Like, there was no content. It was just kind of like little things like that, or inviting me to breakfast in your home with your friend who's dying of cancer. These were literally things that occurred while I'm going through chemo. And I live alone. I don't have family in this area. Friends would help me when they could, but I was driving myself to chemo and then having to come home and praying that someone will come over and help pack because I can't lift anything. So just things like that. I just was shocked it was like a dramatic shift in that person's approach to me and personality. I was really shocked. And I've just, like I said, I don't have an interest even in knowing why at this point. But back then I used to wonder why. Why? I just didn't know what I did. And even though it wasn't, now I later learned through therapy, it wasn't really about me. More likely it was about them. But yeah, I did. I was like, why? Like, why would you put someone out who had nowhere to go? This wasn't a secret, like, it wasn't like I was letting on I had somewhere to go and I didn't. No, I had nowhere to go. So anywho, that was the story about that, about being literally homeless. Like, I had nowhere to go. And that's not an exaggeration.
That's heavy. That's heavy. And it goes back to that people will disappoint us. People will disappoint us. People will change. And sometimes our expectation of people don't meet our expectations. You would think, oh, wow, I would think they would never do me like this.
Yeah.
In the introduction of your book titled God's Got Jokes, you said, I let people's expectations of me define me and order my steps when I should have looked to God for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Unwrap that for me.
Well, I was trying to move in spaces, right, that I felt were expected, right? I was expected to work in this type of job. I was expected to be around these kind of people. And I think that, and then my family expected me to do all these great things and whatnot. And so instead of me, I really hate, because I don't think I am at all, like in the sense that the historical sense, but I was the bougie person that would come in with all these degrees and, all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't like that. I don't like those labels. And I started to think, maybe I'm supposed to work in the White House, and started having conversations with people about that. Or maybe I'm supposed to, work at this think tank, and I had to really like pray and really think about what fuels my fire. What do I enjoy? What can I do and not feel like I have golden handcuffs on? And that's what I call well-paying jobs that you hate, golden handcuffs. So things like that. I even was approached by a friend, a mutual friend of ours, to work for Omarosa in the White House. I was a 6-figure salary. She needs more Black people on her team. I said, yeah, and this is exactly what I told this person. I would go to work every day and have to throw up in the trash can outside before I walked into the building. Like, I don't think that I could do that. That doesn't sit right in my spirit. People, I have a lot of friends who work jobs that is not fulfilling, but it pays extremely well. And money doesn't move me like that. So people, was expecting me to move in certain, to publish this and to be on this TV show and to be this thought leader, and whatnot. And honestly, I'm a people pleaser, in the sense that I felt bad because I used to not want to apply for jobs because I was afraid of disappointing the people that I know. I was that afraid of failing. I love the Marianne Williamson quote, but no, my deepest fear, low key, is failing, and my deepest fear is the ultimate success, because that's a lot of work as well. It like I said, it's lonely at the top, but it's hard to sustain as well. It really is, and I know, because I've seen people just be like, F it, I'm gonna move to Africa, or it could be debilitating, and I just didn't want that on me, like that. So I started praying about it, and from 2019 until probably the pandemic hit, like the entire year 2019 into the pandemic, I had to pray about, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be doing with my life. Like, I didn't know what life was like after cancer, first of all. And that's something that only a cancer survivor can really attest to, is that when you've gone through something, it's almost like the military, to be honest with you. When you've been at war, or you've been in this, regimented life for a couple of years, right? And you're used to going to the doctor and scheduling surgeries and having a surgery, and then, going through that whole and doing it over again and then over again. Because I've had 8 total surgeries. So when you've had all this, it's like, okay, now what? Because there's no playbook, and you can read someone else's story, but there's no playbook for your life. Only God knows. So you have to now really just trust him. And I mean, that Anthony Brown song, first line, he didn't create us to worry, to be afraid. He created us to trust him. It's hard though.
Wow, so many things you said, especially in terms of the golden handcuffs. I can completely like resonate with 8 surgeries. 8 is the number of new beginnings.
Ooh.
You talked about worth. You talked about your breast cancer, and the golden handcuffs. What do you hope people learn or see or feel in your story?
So I want people to learn to be proactive, not reactive, first of all, because there are a lot of us who have ailments that we try to ignore. And by speaking up and being proactive, even if you are accused of being a hypochondriac, let's hope not, By it could save your life, or it could change your life. So I definitely want people to be more proactive about their health, not only about their physical health, right? I mean their mental health as well. Something that we didn't touch on that I do go into great detail in my book are my thoughts of suicide. I had, when I did radiation, I had a severe radiation burn for a whole year. And I mean, like, I had to wear a bandage and wrap my chest. And for a whole year, I used to carry a bandage bag. I was taking Oxy for breakthrough pain. I was wearing a fentanyl patch for slow release pain. And I was putting lidocaine directly on my burn to numb it every day, just to function. Okay. This is not to be high, to be sleepy. No, this is like I was going to a job. I was going to church. I was going to sorority meetings. I was going to ministry meetings because I was in leadership on my young adult ministry at the time, doing all of this with a gaping wound in my chest. So there were times when I was either in so much pain or had experienced so many disappointing things that happened to me. Like I thought I was going to find an apartment with a friend, and that person flaked on me completely. And they knew my situation was dire, and I wanted to I just wanted to take all my oxy pills and go to sleep. Literally, I had a plan and I never told anybody, because when people who actually succeed at taking their life, usually no one sees it coming. And it wasn't for like over a year, I think, that I even mentioned that to anybody. Just it was always people disappointing me that always made me think, I don't want to be here. This is too much for me. And then God be like, girl, you better shut up. It's like, you better shut up and get ready for church or something like that. It really would be something like that. And that it'll hit me like, well, let me get ready for church. So it was kind of like that. But yeah, I will say that your mental health, it has its ebbs and flows, and that's fair. I hate when people think that you're supposed to be oh so strong and that's not how we're built, because it's in our moments of weakness that we lean on him, and that's what he wants us to do, and we learn those lessons, and we're able to share what we experience with others that could possibly save a life. He knows what he's doing. He ain't got to laugh at me about it though, but he be knowing.
So every time that someone disappointed you or failed to have your back, you showed up for you and God showed up for you.
And showed out. I could not, I moved 5 times during my cancer journey. You know how exhausting that is? You know how embarrassing that is to ask people to help you repeatedly? You know how hard it is to even, find an ounce of humility to live in, a room in someone's house, with other people you don't know, or with even the owner who after a while don't want you to live there. Living in someone's house where you're paying rent, but they're coming into your space when you're not there and then talking stuff about you when you're not there. It was a whole, listen, I moved, like I said, I moved 5 times. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And even my friend who he's one of the many people I lost during my journey, but he was the only person that would let me like stay at his house when I had to move in 5 weeks. And it's not, I'm not upset at anyone, for whatever reason they had for not letting me, giving me a place to stay. But I don't know if they just didn't believe that I would have, that I needed a place to stay. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it prevented, it really, it made it hard for me. And this one person, my friend, he said, child, come stay with me. I sleep on the couch. And that is exactly what happened. And, I am grateful. I am so grateful. And I will forever be, in his debt, even in his death. So, he's not here on earth. I am so grateful to him for giving me that space to rest because chemo's hard. Okay. Chemo's hard. I slept a lot for days to the point where he had people checking on me because he was a flight attendant. So
Oh,
he
wow.
would be overseas for like a week, or like 5 days in a row. And he would have people say, "Hey, wake up. He told me to come bring you some soup," or "I'm just checking on you because he's going to be gone an extra week," or something. And that is, that's friendship. It really is. And, nobody is the perfect friend, but he was there when I needed somebody. And I miss him every day.
Wow. So that's a reminder that we walk amongst angels here on earth, and
That's all my auntie said about
yeah,
him. The
we walk
whole
amongst
time I
angels.
lived at his house. Yeah, I lived there for over a month. She said, "That's your angel." She just kept saying, "He your angel." So when I told her that he was sick and he had passed away, she was like, "Not your angel." It was hilarious. Yeah. And um he would pray with me with his family every morning. He would pray for me, excuse me, with his sisters and mom. And when I went to his services, I wasn't supposed to, by the way. I was 5 weeks out of ICU. That's in the book. But I just got out of ICU, and I introduced myself to his mother. And I couldn't really hug, because I had just had, surgery. And but I hugged her a little bit and I told her who I was. And she grabbed me and I had to endure that pain, honey, because she was like, "We prayed for you. Look at you. We pray." I mean, it just, and I do hope to be able to take her a book because I dedicated my book to him. So yeah, it really, you can't help but smile, and it was several people, at least 4 or 5 people that I lost on this journey, that helped me along the journey. It's like, "Well done, come home, well done." It was like people just checking out, that's really like, I was like, "Okay, God, I see what you're doing." But that was I think I lost my father, my brother. I lost so many friends, and and still losing my friend that let me live with him was still the hardest loss during my journey. It really was.
We are so grateful that your journey and your story is still to be continued. So, before I ask my last question, where can we find you online?
Twitter, Instagram, and email if you want to email me. So my Twitter handle is ponder on that, and my Instagram handle is Dr. underscore ponder, PONDER.
Awesome.
Oh,
And
and my email, sorry, jokesbygod@gmail.
the final question is, what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your reset?
Change is inevitable, right? So I think that probably the greatest lesson is just know that all these different things that are changing in your life is happening for a reason, and try to like walk in that, being open to it and not rejecting it, because it'll just make you sicker, and make things possibly more difficult. Because there were times that I kind of didn't accept help. There were times that I was like, thinking I really had a humility problem. I know what it was. It was very hard. That's why I said I have to write another book about stuff like that. But I know after finishing school and knowing all these friends I had an issue with accepting help sometimes. Somebody had to yell at me and tell me to set up a GoFundMe. I was not trying to do, yeah. So I would say, be open to change, and definitely have a relationship with a higher power, for sure.
Love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, I forgot to tell them where to find my book.
Go ahead.
Amazon. I didn't even think about that. So my book is called God's Got Jokes. I don't know if I don't know how to like put it in front of the camera really, but if you come to a book signing and I sign it, you'll get a bookmark, and it has my contact information on the back as well. So I just hope that, if you read it, you share it with others.
Love it, love it, love it. All hearts and minds clear. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Another wonderful, wonderful conversation. Laughter heals. Fear and worry don't go with faith and prayer. You know someone who is in their own fight and needs this. Make sure you share. And remember, a reset is always available to you.